Hello and welcome to episode 24 of the Adam Nolan Bookman podcast. This week we're doing Sven, A Beautiful Game. And my name's Alistair Bond and I'm joined with my co-host Johnny. Say hi, Johnny.
Hey Al, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, bud.
So you're on first name terms with the author. It's just Sven.
I think that's true, right? Back home, certainly in England, he is just Sven, right? He only needs one name.
But in this book, he's Svenis.
Well, not in England, he's not. It's Sven.
Sven, I hardly knew you at all, by the way.
Yeah, without him giving much away, I did learn a lot. And I've got quite a lot to say about this.
He gives very little away about himself. But he is a chancer. That's what Sven-Göran Eriksson is.
I mean, he seems like he's lived two different lives. And the intersection between the lives was a certain international management job. His before and after England is genuinely astonishing.
Well, you said he's lived two lives, and there's a nice quote there at the end of the book. He says, and obviously this is all coloured by the fact that he learns that he's dying, right? He's got terminal cancer. And I think he said he had a year to live, but it sounds like he might have even died in less time than that. But so the whole book, that is kind of, obviously, we listen, in my case, or read the book with that, kind of looming over it. So there was one passage, I just find it now. Life is short, it's true, but if you live it right, it's plenty. Which I guess, given the nature of the book and the context it was written in, is a nice quote. But he really lived a life, this guy.
Yeah, he absolutely did. What did you think of Sven before the book?
He always kind of confused me, Sven. I was thinking about it before I read the book or listened to the book. What did I know about Sven? I was like, who did he even manage beforehand? And I was like, oh yeah, Lazio. But then I didn't know much about the Benfica stuff. The fact that he managed every club in Italy apart from Juventus and the two Milans. He seemed to manage them all. Sorry, to answer your question, I thought he was likable always, but in a kind of detached and vaguely boring kind of way in his kind of demeanour. But you could always tell there was something bubbling there that was kind of fun with Sven. He was probably good crack in the background, right?
Well, that's it, absolutely. I mean, he has a reputation as having that proverbial twinkle in his eye. And that's how, I sort of remembered him as like a very mediocre football coach, but kind of a warm, endearing personality who, for at least 5 years in England, absolutely captured the public's imagination. In a way that a subsequent England manager, Fabio Capello, certainly did not.
Eriksson has a funny way about him in this book, because he's diplomatic, but he does throw a bit of shade here and there, and he does it in a kind of a shielded way almost. But Capello is one of the people he kind of has a slight dig at.
Yeah, again and again. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think within the space of like 5 pages, he has like 3 or 4 digs at Capello.
Yeah,
and I don't really see where they really crossed. I guess they were managed against each other in Italy during the day, but crikey Mikey, he doesn't like Capello.
Reading this book, I think that where Eriksson's real gift lay is, I bet he seems to have been just really good around wealthy, club owners. I think that's what Eriksson's real skill was.
Well, yeah, the wealthy people thing, that's something we can get onto.
But can I just say here, like he says at one point, towards the very end of the book, he's like, I used to speak regularly to Roman Abramovich. Okay, well, fair enough. And then he said, before he bought Chelsea, he was going to buy Spartak Moscow, and I was going to be the manager. And I was like, wait, hold on. You knew Abramovich before he bought Chelsea? Like, you move in funny circles, Eriksson.
Yeah, he also, well, just staying on that little nugget of information, Roman Abramovich also asked him which team he should purchase, Spurs or Chelsea. And Sven answered, "What's your objective?" And Roman Abramovich answered, "To win." And Sven-Göran Eriksson recommended him then, in which case, to buy Chelsea. What objective would Roman Abramovich have given for Sven-Göran Eriksson to answer Tottenham? I want to fail gloriously in embarrassing fashion. You should buy Spurs then. I just thought that was funny. Just like, which one should you buy? Well, what's your objective? I'd like to win. Then that would be Chelsea.
Chelsea, yeah, go for Chelsea in that case. Just to say, I think that Eriksson is like, there was a film I saw years ago called The Ambassador, which was like a Danish filmmaker who went to West Africa where he was trying to buy blood diamonds, and he set up like an arms factory in Liberia. And the whole thing was just a total sham, and he was just seeing what he would get away with. And I think maybe that's kind of like what Sven-Göran Eriksson is like.
I think you're right. It's just Sven-Göran Eriksson wouldn't know what was going on. He suddenly find himself in Liberia and is like, I met a guy in Dubai and now look at me. I want to first read out. These are the titles that Sven-Göran Eriksson has won. So he won as a manager. He won the Division 3 in Sweden with Degerfors. He won the Swedish Cup twice with Gothenburg. He won the Swedish League with Gothenburg, and he won the UEFA Cup with Gothenburg. He's won the Portuguese League 3 times. He's won the Portuguese Cup once, Portuguese Super Cup once, and he was a runner-up in the European Cup and the UEFA Cup with Benfica. He won the Italian Cup with Roma. He won the Italian Cup with Sampdoria. With Lazio, he won Serie A. He won the Italian Cup twice. He won the Italian Super Cup. He won the UEFA Cup Winners' Cup. He won the UEFA Super Cup. And he was a runner-up in the 97-98 UEFA Cup. He did all those things. And I'll tell you what, he did all those things before he managed England. It just seemed to me that as soon as he managed England, he just fell to pieces. He became an absolute joke and a caricature of himself.
He didn't enjoy that experience, did he? Like this book, I thought this book was going to be like 60% about England, the England job. It's one chapter in like 20 chapters. Remarkable.
I was genuinely quite impressed with his reserve there, frankly, because I would have thought the primary market for a Sven-Göran Eriksson book is England football supporters. I suppose I'm being slightly one-eyed. I guess there's a bunch of Benfica and Gothenburg fans out there who would disagree with me. But yeah, I mean, he really glossed over it. I mean, the 5-1, who within the eyes of a nation is his crowning achievement against Germany. I mean, that's just a paragraph, right? A fair play to him.
Yeah. And it seems to me that he wanted to get past England stuff as quickly as possible. But anyway, we'll come back to that. But the other thing that struck me was we talked earlier about Clough and Taylor and how that was essentially a unique relationship. But what Eriksson did really was he got a hold of Tord Grip and kind of just did what Grip said football-wise, and he was just kind of the guy who whispered in the ears of all these various wealthy club owners. That was the relationship, wasn't it? Yeah,
I mean, it was. I mean, Tord Grip was a huge part of it and was a huge influence on Sven in his early career.
But exactly like Clough and Taylor. And then he flipped it, just like Clough.
So let's get on to the book, Johnny, shall we? Was there a ghostwriter involved in this book?
Yes.
Yes, there fucking was. Jesus, what? God.
Did you enjoy his poem?
Poems plural. Johnny, I didn't read them. I didn't fucking read them. And I won't read them. I didn't read any of the poems in fucking Lord of the Rings either. And I won't. No, thank you.
He knew him growing up or something, right? This guy, Bengt. Yeah. All right. Well, obviously we're butchering this name, but it's Bengt, B-N-G-T Berg.
Yeah, so here are some of the highlights of Bent Berg's opening chapter. Our conversations have ranged widely through time and space, like a spring brook that babbles and sparkles, pauses a while and then rushes on, down to the larger waterways, indeed to the seas of life. Come on, mate. As our youthful paths first crossed on a sports ground in northern Varmland, where we tested our mettle in the toughest disciplines of athletics, decathlon, we can, for the sake of simplicity, liken the story of this book to a triple jump. What? For simplicity? For simplicity's sake, we're going to make, and I can assure you, this book has no resemblance to the triple jump whatsoever. And just to finish off, and there's poetry in football, although the inverse is probably thornier. What? The inverse is non-existent, you knob. There is football in poetry. Yeah, he really inserts himself into this story, does old Bentberg. He feels himself a big part of it. And I found him insufferable.
Okay, well, let's pick up there the story in Varmland.
Yeah, so as I say, we're literally on page 50 by the time we get to...
introducing the main protagonist.
Who? Oh, Sven, I remember him. It's meant to be about him, right?
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
There's not much to say about his childhood, really, is there? Apart from this kind of fact that his mother hid him and his grandparents didn't know about his existence for a while. Other than that, there's nothing really remarkable or stands out about his childhood, I think.
No, I think you can sum up his childhood and you can sum it like this. As in it so that the fresh rose's fragrant existence is enticing precisely because it will not be resplendent forever. The rose reaches its perfect blossoming only to dry up and become a lighter form of matter. An artificial rose might look like a genuine rose and surpass it in terms of its length of life. But it's not a real fucking rose, is it? Woo!
Is that your word?
Anyway.
They're your words now, or they are from Mr. Berg?
They were 90% Mr. Berg's words. The start of it was. Yeah, so he's really inserted himself in this book. He's flexing his literary muscles. There's no fucking tortured adjective that he's not going to put in. As soon as I see a babbling brook in a book, Johnny, I'm out.
There's a few people like him in football. I suppose Wenger's a bit like this. Mourinho, obviously. But these guys who didn't really play to any decent level and who just had the gumption and the kind of the neck to say, you know what, I'm going to be a football manager anyway. And he is, even if you look at pictures of him when he was a younger man, he's just such a dweeb. It's just remarkable that he could, show up in any kind of dressing room and, talk with any authority or whatever.
Yeah, that's it. It's with a bald head with a slick back hair. No one would ever grow their hair like that now. If you go bald, you shave it off, don't you? You do. There's only one option.
Yeah, so he was a PE teacher, and then he became like, he was always playing football, part-time, amateur kind of stuff, and he started coaching. He was assistant coach to Tord Grip in the Swedish 3rd division. I tell you something that I noticed about Sven. I mentioned earlier that he very kind of subtly throws shade on people, but he also has the capacity to really boast without appearing to boast. I've noticed that. Did you notice that throughout the book?
No, give me an example there.
Like he said, yeah, he was talking about when he went to IFK Gothenburg. And this really was the thing that made him, right? So he was in the 3rd division with Grip. They brought a team up to the 2nd division, and then he got a job as the manager of IFK Gothenburg. And they won the UEFA Cup, which is remarkable. They're amateurs. But he says there was some kind of boardroom, whatever, spat, which meant that a bunch of the directors and the old directors who kind of established the team and brought him on, they were booted out, and then this other new chairman came in who he didn't care for. And then he says, for the rest of my career, whenever I moved around Europe, I brought those directors to see me because I could afford to, and I liked to do that. It was important to me. And I was like, look at this guy. You know what I mean? It doesn't sound like he put it in a way, it's like, oh, that's quite nice. But ultimately he's saying, I am so rich and so nice. That is what he's saying.
As you say, he won the UEFA Cup with Gothenburg.
Yes.
That's incredible. Yeah, a team of amateurs. A team of amateurs. They were proper big teams. He could have gone to manage Barcelona, but he thought the Spanish league was a bit iffy. He absolutely dominated the Portuguese league. He was a huge figure in Italy, and I think all of this gets sort of lost. I mean, it all got lost on me.
Me too.
I mean, absolutely. I was aware he did all right in Italy, and I But I sort of knew him that he nearly became a Blackburn manager. I mean, that's where he figured in my head. He's like, oh, nearly became a Blackburn manager. Yeah, the kid was absolute. And when I say the kid, yeah, the young Eriksson was genuinely one of Europe's great managers.
Well, I think Tord Grip was genuinely one of Europe's great football men. But yeah, you're right. It is like he does start getting duped a lot more after he's become England manager, because earlier on, when, if you're a manager in Italy, you're dealing with some shady motherfuckers. Like he's talking about at one stage the owner of Roma, this guy Dino Viola, who's best friends with Giulio Andretti, the 3-time post-war prime minister of Italy. And this guy, Viola, explains, and Andretti used to show up to training matches and just watch them play. And Viola explains to Eriksson that Andretti became so powerful because at the end of the Second World War, he got his hands on a big cache of documents, which he just used to blackmail people for 40 years afterwards. Isn't that unbelievable?
There is some political intrigue in here, quite surprising amounts.
Again, this is a kind of he appears to be an unassuming, down-to-earth Swedish fella. And then he's like, oh, I was in Benfica and we appointed Eusebio as our goalkeeper coach. So you did you? Go on.
I wanted to get onto this. Yeah, I think you're misusing your resources a bit there. Eusebio, who was a serial adulterer, by the way, his wife described herself as the most cheated on woman in Portugal. Yeah.
He won the league and the cup in his first year at Benfica. And then he goes off to Rome. And he was in Italy for a long time. He went back to Portugal, but he was in Italy for a long time. So he managed in Italy. He was with Roma. He was with Sampdoria. He was with Lazio. Was there someone else?
And he won something with all of those teams. He won a cup with at least all of them.
But the other thing about Eriksson was, and he says this himself, so this is not an original thought, is he was in Italy when Italy was the best league in the world. And he moved to England just as kind of he also managed Fiorentina. But he moved to England as there was kind of that changing of the guard, and suddenly, well, obviously Spain was big as well, but then all the money started coming into England with Abramovich. So he was there, what the names of players he describes when the people he managed in Italy, it's like, whoa, you know what I mean? These guys were just, as I was kind of conscious of football, the kinds of fellas you'd hear James Richardson talking about in Gazzetta Football Italia, your Mancinis, your Beppe Signores, Hullet, and all these kind of fellas, all these great names.
Well, I've got the list here, Johnny. So this is his Lazio team: Marcelo Salas, Roberto Mancini, Juan Sebastian Veron, Diego Simeone, Fabrizio Ravanelli, and Pavel Nedved.
Wow.
I mean, not bad, is it?
Not bad at all. Yeah. He was known in Italy as the beautiful loser. It's a lovely title, isn't it? Until he was
I'll take beautiful loser. Finish with sentence for me. It was at Sampdoria that I met the greatest genius of them all.
Was it Mancini?
It was Mancini, the greatest genius of them all.
Yeah,
apparently he really was. He was a bit, I don't know how much I saw Mancini play, but people absolutely rave about him, don't they? So he liked being a football manager. I'll tell you what job he wouldn't want. He wouldn't want to be the Pope, would he? No. He met the Pope.
Shit job.
And he said being a Pope is boring. And he spells it with 1, 2, 3 O's. Boring, like a kid would. Okay. Well, I don't think you're going to be called up for that, Sven, but you never know.
He starts with Roma. He goes to Fiorentina. He says that was shit. And actually, at Fiorentina, he said it's the first and only time that somebody asked him the owner asked him to draw a game. We need a draw today. And he was like, what? He said that's the only time that happened to him in football.
Oh, yeah, but he also, at Roma, he thought some of his players deliberately cheated, didn't he?
Well, not only did he think that, there was a police investigation.
Can't be a great feeling as a manager, right? You're all going to try your hardest, right? I mean, that's given, right? Apparently not.
Well,
yeah, there's a Falcao, not that Falcao, who refused to take a penalty as well in a European Cup final.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
That Roma one was the last day of the season. They were even on points with Lazio, and they're playing against Lecce, who were already relegated. So, this was to determine who would win the league, Roma or Juve, and the Roma players just played shit. And there was an investigation. He said he was deposed by the court, but the proceedings never went anywhere. Yeah, that can't be great.
But yeah, he doesn't really dig into it, does he? You don't really learn anything about his time in Italy.
Well, he was pissed off, but he did stay with Roma.
Yeah.
When Berlusconi came in at Milan, he wanted Eriksson, but he got Arrigo Sacchi. And so you said that thing about Capello earlier. He does have little digs at other managers. They're the people he goes after. And so in this kind of, we live in the world of football created by Pep Guardiola, but Sacchi is kind of one of the high priests of that type of football, right? One of the originators of the whole thing. But he essentially says that Sacchi was an asshole and was rubbish and used to go around screaming at players, and the players all hated him. And he says that Ruud Hull told him that, okay, we won the league 3 times with Sacchi, but if we'd known Sacchi, we would have won it every year. Oof, in your face, Sacchi.
I always think that sounds like bullshit, though, isn't it? It's just like a player doesn't like a manager. Oh, we only won it 3 times. We would have won it much more if we'd had someone that I liked. Yeah. Well, we can't check that out, can we, Rude? So,
plays for Fiorentina. He's in Roma, goes to Fiorentina, doesn't like it. Then he goes back to Benfica, where they lost in the final of the European Cup to Milan. Back in Italy, he goes to Sampdoria, where he's the beautiful loser.
Well, he manages to set that straight at Lazio.
Yes, he does.
Which is when, basically, he enters my field of vision.
He said he was announced as English manager, and suddenly the press, the Red Tops, were mounting cameras on cranes around Lazio's ground. He was supposed to be at Lazio for another few months, and suddenly they were all descending on him like the pack of ravenous vultures that they are.
I know that England has done some terrible things in the past, and we're a country with a lot of blood on our hands. But the very worst thing about England is our tabloid newspapers, right? That is the very worst thing. God, it's embarrassing. Everywhere you go, it's so embarrassing.
He becomes England manager because of his agent Athol Still, the former swimmer and opera singer turned football agent.
Okay, and at that point, I'd like to introduce 2 little musical diversions, Johnny.
Go on.
First of all, one is some just cold, hard propaganda. And here we go. It's a story about the chairman of UEFA, Lennart Johansson. Once, Lennart Johansson, the chairman of UEFA, was visiting London, and Nancy and I, Tord Grip and Athol, invited him to Les Ambassadeurs Club. Athol and Lennart started talking music, and Lennart mentioned that Frank Sinatra was his favourite singer. Athol countered that Frank Sinatra was his favourite singer as well, outside the world of opera. They started humming and then singing together. We were seated in a large dining room, and suddenly the room fell dead silent. And afterwards, everyone rose to their feet and applauded. Lennart turned out to have a magical voice, and the 2 gentlemen sang with great authority and emotion. Now, is that in Sven's book, or is that in some fucking North Korean propaganda book? It's absolutely... The room stood and applauded after Lennart Johansson sang with great authority and emotion.
Who sings with authority? I've never heard that expression in my life.
And the other one, which was genuinely astonishing, is that the FA turned down ABBA writing an England song. I mean, apparently Tord Grip knows Benny from ABBA, because of course he does.
Well, he's an accordion player.
And I guess all Swedish accordion players have all crossed paths at some point. So, yeah, obviously Tord Grip's got Benny from ABBA's phone number. And, Benny from ABBA was happy to record an England song. But, oh, no, the FA turned it down. I think fucking ABBA turned down $1 billion to reunite, and they're fucking handing it to the FA for free. Yeah. My God.
Yeah, that was really something, wasn't it? This was interesting. He said that English people don't say no. They say, that might be a good idea. Let's think about it. And I can tell you... I can tell you, this is a trait certainly shared in Ireland. We are not ones for saying no. Yep, okay.
It's manners, really, isn't it? It's just manners. It's just a nice way of saying manners.
Anyway, okay, he doesn't talk all that much about the football at England, does he? Germany 5-1, Michael Owen scoring a hat-trick, and Beckham's goal against Greece. Now, Beckham's goal against Greece, I remember being extremely important, but I didn't know that it was... I know that he needed to score to win the game, but they still would have had a playoff game, so it would have been fine.
Yeah, it's one of those, isn't it? Because he didn't score to win the game. I think he scored to draw the game.
Sorry, yeah.
To get the point. And if Germany had... They were playing Finland at the same time, and if Germany had managed to beat Finland, we would have been in the playoffs anyway. It was a weird one, that one. But I do remember it, Johnny. I remember exactly where I was. I was sitting on the stairs in the Fountain in Brighton, not looking because I couldn't look. But then, that moment, just the crowd, it screams around me. But yes, that's it. Again, real reserve there, and good for him. And I'll tell you what, I also forgot entirely about the whole Faria Alam business, who was like a secretary at the FA.
Also sleeping with the head of the FA at the time.
Palios. Golden times. You didn't get that with Southgate, did you?
His marriage had broken down when he was in Genoa managing Sampdoria. And he certainly took advantage of his situation when he was in England, didn't he?
Well, he did. I can remember when he was appointed, and there was like a newspaper column, and they showed a picture of Nancy Delolio, and she was looking kind of, swanky. And like the columnist was like, I think the England footballers are going to respect him because he's a man after their own heart. He's a sexy guy. And it's like, yeah, that's going to help. Yeah, he says at one point, he asked... he told Carragher and Rooney and one other that they had to speak English properly, and Rooney laughed in his face because he couldn't understand a word that he said.
Yeah, Gerrard, I think, the three of them.
No, Gerrard, of course.
Yeah, he liked Rooney.
Rooney just seems like a good egg, doesn't he? In almost everything.
He doesn't like Carragher.
Yeah, Carragher is more divisive. I like Carragher, in all honesty. I don't know why people get so worked up. I understand if you're a Man United fan.
What about the time he spat out the card? Spat out the card at that person. He's not a nice man. What a strange kind of impulse. I know what I'm going to do in this situation. I'm going to spit your car, you fucking asshole.
I was walking past the Cybertruck yesterday with my brother. And I was like, look, and my brother and his son, I was like, look at these. You always know who the biggest dipshit in town is now. And the family right behind me got into it and looked really upset.
That's one of those Tesla trucks, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, there's loads of them around here, mate. There's loads.
Let's talk about the fake shake, because obviously I remember that, but actually I say that, but I'm not sure I really did fully remember it. This is crazy stuff.
We just sort of accepted it back in the day. Oh yeah, and just on the tabloid thing as well, the whole Ulrika Johnson and Faria Alam stuff, he was really worried that someone close to him was leaking stuff. He was worried his brother was leaking stuff to the press. And all the time he was just having his phone tapped.
For 3 years.
Fuckers.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. There you go. You're going to bed thinking, is my brother sniding me off? And it's the fucking scumbag journalist at the Sun and the News of the World. Oh, these people.
Yeah, Rebecca Brooks. So after the fake shake stuff, which we're about to get to, he says to Rebecca Brooks, I'm going to sue you. And she's like, well, get in line, man. Everybody's suing us. We don't care.
Well, they would care in the end, wouldn't they? When the News of the World had to close down, they would care.
Do you know who she was married to, Rebecca Brooks?
Oh, I do know. I do. Go on, tell me.
Number one England football fan, Phil Mitchell. No, the other one, Grant Mitchell, Ross Kemp.
Oh, Ross. Yeah, okay. I do remember that. How? Yeah. How? Rise met across a crowded room. Well, I suppose all that training with the worst gangs in the world would give him good fucking preparation for hanging around with Sun journalists.
Yeah, so
awful.
Okay, the fake shake. This guy subsequently went to jail for he was involved. His name is Mazhar Mahmood, and he was involved in. He says he was involved for 20 years. He was dressing up as a sheikh and essentially kind of entrapping people in unfortunate and compromising situations. And he claims to have been responsible. His investigations were responsible for 94 convictions. But then the 95th conviction was his own. He ended up going to jail for one of his sting operations. Yeah, these are shady fuckers, these guys. But okay, tell us about the fake shake and what you remember from the time.
Well, it's just every dopey bastard got into bed with him, right? I think this is just an example of just when it comes to money, people cannot trust their instincts. They just, all common sense goes out the line. You see some sheikh offering you millions of pounds, you're like, what will it take? He did this all the time.
I've got the names right here. The people: George Galloway, Sarah, Duchess of York, sports celebrities including Freddie Shepherd, John Fashanu, John Higgins, because remember John Higgins was kind of done for match fixing, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Then in terms of what happened to Sven with the sheikh, he was flown to Dubai and put up in, this massive hotel, whatever that it's called. And he said it was amazing. And this guy said that he wanted to set up a football academy or whatever. And Sven was actually, do you know what would be convenient for me is if you could buy Aston Villa and install me as the manager. I want to get Beckham as my captain. Anyway, it all turned out to be bullshit. Isn't that astonishing?
Well, it is astonishing, but they hardly got him that bad. I mean, it wasn't that... Basically, after the 2006 World Cup, he prepared to be manager of Aston Villa. I mean, it's not some of the shocking revelations that he got from others. But of course, it's enough for the FA, isn't it?
Oh, well, it's enough for the British public. How dare you walk away from the second most important job in England?
I think everyone had enough by then anyway. I mean, it was, it had run its course. It was all just kind of unnecessary.
But sorry, just to go back to the point I made earlier, I think that, he obviously looks like a clown in this situation, but I think that this is the kind of thing that he was probably doing for his whole life, Just going off on these trips with shady businessmen and being offered crazy money to do something. This was not out of the ordinary for him.
No, absolutely not. As his subsequent career will certainly attest to.
So when did he finish? In the 2006?
2006, yeah. So, yeah, because the 2000 Euros it barely mentions when Rooney broke onto the scene, and we would have won it if he hadn't got injured. And I don't know if that even gets a sniff in the book.
McLaren had been part of his coaching staff. He'd been imposed on Eriksson. And then in the changing room, in Eriksson's last game, McLaren stands up and says, thank you very much, Sven. You've been very good. We will invite you back in 2008 for the final. But they didn't go in 2008, did they?
No, they didn't. That was the Wally and the Brolly.
That was the Wally and the Brolly, yeah. And Todd Grip had told Eriksson to sack McLaren at various times over the years.
Yeah, McLaren, potential snake.
Okay, he says England is England. That's what he says at the end to explain his absolutely appalling experience managing the England national team.
Yeah. It's funny, the chapters of a book, it's like chapter 1, Torsby, chapter 7, Sampdoria, chapter 9, England, chapter 10, unemployed. But then the chapters, by chapter 13, it's Dubai/China/Philippines. he starts ramping it up now, baby. So he goes from England, he's unemployed, he doesn't like it. And this is, I think he just spends too much time in gentlemen's clubs in London at this point, just meeting these highfalutin rich people.
Absolutely. So just to give you a list of his jobs after England, their locations: England, Mexico, England, Ivory Coast, England, Thailand, Dubai, China, Philippines. Yeah, it's quite something, isn't it? And it's a pile of fun, actually. I enjoyed all that.
I enjoyed that much more. I enjoyed the second half of the book much more than the first half.
Absolutely. I thought the start of the book, I was like, oh, God. And then the England stuff, okay, that went by real quick. But this, it's like Forrest Gump or something in the second half,
Yeah, so his first job after England is Man City, which is fair enough. But, of course, it's not Man City. It's Man City owned by the Thai Prime Minister, Thaksin Shinawatra. So there's all sorts of intrigue there. Yeah, and this is where he starts meeting some really interesting characters.
He says to Taxon and his wife, Taxon knew so little about football that after one of the games, Taxon and the wife were just sitting there waiting for the third half to begin. Do you remember, I don't know if you were there, but when we lived in Cambodia, Thaksin came over with a Thai team to play against Cambodia, and Hun Sen, the Prime Minister of Cambodia, played against the Thai team, and Thaksin didn't play, but he was the manager of the Thai team. And
I absolutely remember. I remember the picture of a player ushering Hun Sen through, like, and literally pointing at the ball. How many goals did Hun Sen score?
7, I think.
Low-grade dictator, because Kim Jong-un would have scored like 30.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So from Man City, where he starts off well, but they tail off at the end to finish, 8th or 10th or something, but not a bad season.
Doesn't like Fergie, though, does he?
No, Fergie was rude to him.
Yeah, Fergie was invited up after a match twice, and he went once and said hello and left, and then the second time he sent Kairos. Ooh.
I honestly think time has dimmed the memory of what a complete total arsehole Alex Ferguson was at all times, right? Now we sort of look back on fondly, but at the time, everybody unless you supported United, you hated Ferguson, right? We all hated him.
I think the relationship between United fans and Ferguson was funny as well, because he was like a dictator in the sense that he was respected, but I don't know if he was ever loved.
No, I think you're right there, but he is looked back on fondly, and genuinely at the time, he was I can remember just my dad just working himself up into a rage at some of like Ferguson's post-match comments. So he goes to Mexico, which he acknowledges was a mistake, but he does come back with a bride, so that's nice.
Yeah, that was nice. Yeah, good for him.
A lovely Panamanian waitress.
Yeah, okay.
Who I believe was with him till the end.
Yeah, she's whatever in his... he says at the end that, is this a Swedish thing? Because Zlatan did it, and at some point Sven just goes by a house and goes in and says, I'm buying this house off you. What's going on with Swedish people demanding houses off other people?
Yes, poor Swedish estate agents are absolutely devastated. There's no need for them. That's how it goes in Sweden. Yeah, no, I did notice that. He's just rocking along. Well, that's a nice looking house.
Yeah.
Apparently knocked on the door in the middle of the night, and the fella, not unreasonably, said maybe this could wait till the morning.
He knocks on the door and Zlatan opens, and he's like, oh. A lot of these kind of funny little adventures he went on in the second half of his career were fun, but the Notts County one is hard to beat, isn't it? This
is absolutely nuts. And he says, I did my research. I did do some research into it. You did? Why are you in North Korea then?
Like this guy, Russell King. So he meets this guy, as you say, he's around these kind of London gentlemen's clubs. And he meets this guy, Russell King, and another guy called Nathan Willett. And they're claiming to be backed by the royal family of Bahrain and the Swiss Commodity Holding Company, which claims to own rights to all the gold, iron ore and coal in North Korea. And Sven's like, sounds great. What the fuck? Come on, Sven. And so he's offered a 5-year contract to be paid in shares and to be essentially anything he wants in Notts County.
Yeah, see, that should have self-alarm bells. What job do you want? You could be the tea lady if you wanted to. We just want you around.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could shine shoes.
So he moved to Nottingham with Tord Grip. Poor old Tord is pulled along. He buys Casper Schmeichel and Sol Campbell. Sol Campbell's going to get 40k a week, stays for 29 days and gets the fuck out of there. In the middle of all this, these guys, so Russell King and his company, Munto Finance, which is supposedly backed by this Bahraini bank, Quad Bank, they say, okay, we have to go to North Korea now. Okay, let's go to North Korea then. He arrives in North Korea, a lady, and some woman from the North Korean administration says, we want a favourable draw in the World Cup in 2010. It's like, I can't do that for you. It's like, oh, you don't want to help us. It's like, I would like to help, but I can't do that for you.
It's unbelievable that the Notts County shoeshine boy can't organise the next World Cup. What were they expecting? The naivety there.
He did get to see the world's largest hog, and then they had to get out of Pyongyang, and they were flying back through Beijing. And this guy, Russell King, was like, "Yeah, guys, I just got to run," and he just bolted, and they never saw him again. They arrived back in Notts County without the owner of the club, who had fled to Bahrain at this point, because apparently he'd promised the delivery of an oil shipment to North Korea, which never showed up, and he was in big trouble, and he just went off to Bahrain, and he too ended up in jail. That guy, Russell King. He was eventually extradited from Bahrain to Jersey. But these guys, like this guy, Russell King, is just making shit up and buying football clubs. And he went to jail for like 18 months. Man, you can do whatever the fuck you want in the kind of business end, right?
Yeah, white collar crime, mate. Oh, naughty boy, you're going to have to go away. It's worth it, isn't it? Like, spend 9 months in prison, like, it's probably the time you've had.
Yeah, a Jersey prison.
Yeah, prison shit. Oh, I don't have a new Xbox One. Oh. So anyway, County were meant to be bringing in David Beckham, Luis Figo and Roberto Carlos. Their first game, they lost 2-1 to Accrington Stanley.
One other nice little wrinkle was this guy, Russell King, cheeky fucker, when he flew to North Korea, he used the name L. Voldemort.
Not big Harry Potter fans in North Korea.
That's incredible.
Well, that's funny. I've heard your name before. That's a different Voldemort.
Yeah, okay. I love that stuff.
And he says, I realise there were risks involved in the project, but I do like an adventure. Well, you got one, didn't you, bruv?
As you said, he's kind of chasing dimes for the rest of his time, because he'll go on an adventure and then he'll get swindled and then he'll need to get money. And so he'll go on another adventure. It's kind of a bit of a cycle, isn't it?
Yeah, can we just talk about Ivory Coast just very briefly?
Well,
because he has some searing insight into African football. It was impossible not to be infected by their joyousness, but African football needs to improve its organisation. No shit. No shit, Sven. And I thought this was nice. So this is he had a little pep talk with Didier Drogba before his first game, and he really is excited to be there. And I can understand that, right? I mean, being like the manager of one of the big African teams must be absolutely
at the World Cup in Africa in 2010 as well. So.
Yeah, I mean, magical. I mean, what a thing to do. What a thing to have done. What a thing to have had on your CV. Absolutely magical. Before the first match, I told Didier Drogba that we had a good chance. We could very well win the World Cup. I was certain we would reach the quarterfinals. That's how good the team was. But he just said, nope, that's not going to happen. We can't concentrate in big matches, not for 90 minutes. Ultimately, we will make fatal mistakes. Didier Drogba was right. Maybe you've got a say in this, though, Sven. Maybe you could do something about that.
They went out in the group.
Oh, but it was a really tough group, wasn't it? Brazil and Portugal.
But then Lauren Bagbo comes into the changing room, or as Sven would say, the locker room, after the match. Lauren Bagbo subsequently arrested and extradited to The Hague, where he was tried for crimes against humanity, and acquitted. There you go.
Ah, there, see.
Then Leicester.
He spends a very brief time at Leicester. He doesn't do particularly well. And he
doesn't really get into it there, does he?
I mean, I just don't think his heart's in it anymore at this point.
Well, and then he lost £8 million to another.
As all these stories start, he met someone called Samir Khan in Dubai. I just met a lovely fella in Dubai. 3 years later, I gave him all my money, and he lost all of it.
And he said he wants to buy a house for me in Barbados. Sounds like a good idea.
He just doesn't bother checking up on his finances. I think that's the death knell for a lot of rich celebrities, isn't it? Yeah. Just trusting someone else to look after your money.
But he says to his son, we just have to go out and earn it again. So that's the thing with these guys. Okay, I've lost 8 million. Now I'll just become I'll go to Thailand and then I'll go to Dubai, He goes, I went as a sports director for a team in Dubai where he reorganized their youth activities. Doesn't sound like a very important job, Sven.
Well, the world of football's reaping the benefits of that now, aren't they, Johnny? As we're flooded with these fabulous Dubai footballers.
So he was in Italy for the great years of Italian football. He went to England as English football, as the Premier League was really, really, really taking over. And then he went to China for China's heyday.
Yeah, which was another opportunity he was excited about because it gave him the opportunity to expand the game in China and pick up a few quid on the way.
Yeah, he says that he was in Guangzhou, and the mayor of Guangzhou, there were pictures of him everywhere, and this guy wanted to run the team, and they managed to convince him not to. And he said one day he showed up and all the photographs of the guy were gone, and no one ever spoke about it ever. And he says he's presumably still alive under lock and key somewhere, but I never heard anything about a trial. Whoa. Like, whoa.
I wouldn't say we became friends, but he was a pleasant man. Yeah, but he didn't really dig much further into it. Like, wow, don't want to offend anyone there.
He went to another team in China. He went to Shanghai. Let me get this right.
SIPG.
SIPG. Shanghai International Port Group, the world's biggest port.
Oh, baby.
Oh, yeah, now we're talking.
Nothing says a good football team like a big port.
Well, Real Madrid, but how big is your port? Yeah, Asamoah Gyan shows up and is bundled straight out of there, but then they bring in Hulk. Hulk is not a team player, and he didn't like Sven, and he got rid of Sven. But we get no details whatsoever.
No, not at all. They just had a disagreement. He thought Hulk was a very individualistic footballer, and so that's the end of you, Sven.
So, to the Philippines...
Oh, his Filipino team, can you believe we're not that good and we're eliminated after losses to South Korea? Fair enough. China, okay. Kyrgyzstan, who are all physically stronger than us.
But then, so just to keep with his vicious cycle, his self-perpetuating cycle, this job came about because I was contacted by a German agent with a lot of contact with Philippines football. It's like, just stop. Let me just stop you right there, Sven. Do you know this man? Like, he really hadn't learned his lesson, had he?
I mean, not at all. Not at all. I mean, he's got a thing for shady men, hasn't he? He loves it.
That's it. Just again and again. It's like, just so long as he's got Tord by his side, Tord will look after him. Tord Grip is like, what? Ah, come on. Seriously, Sven? Are you fucking kidding me? And then he hauls him along everywhere he goes, you know?
Oh, let me just get my accordion. All right. Do I like the accordion in the Philippines? No, we'll find out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was his last appointment, right? The Philippine national coach.
Well, he became the sports director of a club in Sweden called Karlstad, I think it was. But then COVID hit and that kind of put paid to that, and then it's his diagnosis.
Oh yeah, because it was COVID, because he did have another big plan, didn't he? But COVID scuppered it. He was offered a job in Jamaica.
Yeah, and
he was going to start a league in the Caribbean. It was going to start up with 10 teams, and he was going to be the trainer of one of them. I'm sure that would have gone well.
I wonder what shady middleman had put together this particular little operation, you know?
A new Caribbean football league. I mean, it sounds lovely, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does sound nice. And
there's a story that Mark Kermode always tells about Michael Caine, and he was given the script to Jaws 3, and Michael goes, I don't know if I want to do this, and it's like, okay, but let's just read through the script. We open up on a Caribbean beach at sunset. He's like, okay, yeah, I'm in. I very much think this was part of Sven's thinking. Okay, so you want to be a manager again? Yes, where? For Caribbean? Yes, I would like that. After all his shenanigans and excitement and adventures abroad, he went back to live with his mum and dad until he moved back into his new house. I just think that's very, very sweet.
Yeah, I think there is something sweet about Eriksson. But he's also maybe potentially having people pulled out the back of buildings and shot in the back of the head and all the rest of it. Like, because he's just so close to all these shady fuckers all of the time.
Well, I think he's just in another room when this happens.
What was that noise? Don't worry about it, Sven.
Yeah, he found himself around very wealthy men a lot.
Yeah, that is the genius of Sven, I think. He knew what to say. Leonard Johansson, you are the finest singer. you know what I mean?
What authority and emotion you bring to this performance, Leonard.
I think it's that kind of thing, yeah. Yeah, okay, well, that's kind of the book. The last bit is, his reflection. Oh, sorry, well, there's two last bits. His last bit is the reflections on life and the realization that he's ill. And his diagnosis, he said he had a year to live, but it seems like it was less than a year. And he said in one day, he went for a run, and he collapsed, and he learned that he had a stroke and he had pancreatic cancer. And he said in the space of 24 hours, he went from believing that he was healthy to having a finite amount of time to live.
Oh, I just find it very depressing to read about that, to just be looking down the barrel.
But did you find that worse, or the chapter that followed where it was Bengt Berg kind of doing some kind of free association stuff about like trout swimming around streams and
well, maybe we can read some of this poetry out over the closing credits, so our listeners have to fucking put up with what I had to fucking put up with.
But yeah, that's the book, really, isn't it?
Yep, yeah, it is. He has a nice word for Jose Mourinho, unusually.
Oh, yeah,
a kind word for Jose.
And it was kind of apropos to nothing as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's just like, oh, Jose, he's a good guy. But and another one, he just gives a little nudge to Beckham as well, right at the end. Bex came to visit him when he was dying, and he makes a point of saying he won't talk about what they discussed because he's a very discreet man. What did they fucking talk about, but he can't talk about it?
And by the way, also, Beckham, like this is a different world. Beckham, he called him up after he heard about the diagnosis and said, "I'd like to visit you." He's like, "Okay, come on over." So Beckham flies his private jet to Sweden. He sends his private chef, a day ahead. And they have herring and potato and elk meat.
Yeah.
This is like stuff out of Succession, right?
Nice to be able to do that stuff, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely it is.
Whoa. Like, can you imagine when Beckham started playing for Manchester United in 1995, whenever it was, 96. He scored that goal against Wimbledon in 96, right? There is no way in the fucking world that he could have known that that's the way life was going to go, you know?
No, absolutely right.
That was unimaginable at that point in time.
Yeah, absolutely. The level of celebrity that Beckham achieved.
But celebrity, a celebrity, yes. And just the wealth, what an insane level. I'll just pop it up there to Sweden there for a few hours, 3 hours. Do you think Sven liked Beckham because he was a good player and then had been his captain for England? Or did he like him because he just absolutely oozed wealth, you know?
Well, I think he certainly walked in circles that Sven would like to be part of, right?
Okay, that's the book. Finished at the end. What did you think? Did you like that book?
I did like it. Again, if you're going into this book looking for some saucy details about Eriksson's sex life, you ain't going to find it. But what you are going to find is really just a remarkable life of someone who was at one point a genuinely brilliant football coach and who then went on to be just a genuinely fascinating character.
But when he was a good football coach was the 80s?
Yeah, no, into the 90s. In fact, he won the league in 99, right, with Lazio.
What was his football philosophy?
Yeah, I don't know that. I don't know that, and he doesn't really have one. I mean, it was shaped by Roy Hodgson, apparently.
Yeah.
I mean, as a football coach, he was very frustrating. I mean, watching that England team, and, you know, I know how people get about England fans talking about the England team, but I don't think it's me getting all jolly old England to say that these were genuinely world-class players. But could he make them play together? Could he fuck?
No. I expected we'd be talking about England for this whole episode, but no, not at all. And it's more about... He talks as much about, say, the Philippines as he does about England.
Yeah, well, that's it, because that was all part of his life. It is about his life, and I'm glad that it wasn't just like Sven's England years. I am glad the book was not that. It was about Sven-Göran Eriksson.
In a way, Eriksson's personality is so at odds with like his demeanour and his look and his kind of style or something. You know what I mean? Like, this guy's mad.
No, he is. I mean, you were talking about last week with Cascarino's book has so much more presence than Cascarino, and like the icon of Eriksson is so much bigger than his actual achievements, who basically nobody know about, right? I guess in Sweden you know he's good, and if you're Benfica you know he's good, but England, where he is most famous, no one knows what the fuck he did as a football management other than England and like Notts County. I don't think anybody remembers Leicester. I didn't remember Leicester.
Yeah, like it is crazy. But anyway, yeah, I enjoyed it. It was short and it was sweet.
Yeah, I can wholeheartedly recommend it. And genuinely, yeah, it's a 3-hour book. You can read it in the time it takes you to watch a movie.
You read books faster than they're read in audiobook, Al.
Yeah, well, that's possible, but I don't know, because I'm making notes as well with my stupid Kindle. But yeah, possibly. But you would definitely have this book done in 5 hours, no matter who you are. It's like 250 pages.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
All right, well, I don't want to sound very elitist. Even if you're a total fucking ignoramus, you could read it in under 8 hours.
Yeah, okay. So, like, what's an appropriate meter or measure for this book?
That's 4 shady Dubai businessmen, I would say.
Yeah.
4 shady Dubai businessmen out of 5.
4 backroom deals. Yeah, it's a 4 out of 5 book, isn't it? That's kind of what I thought as well. But
I didn't think it was going to be this way, because I really was hating this book really hard for the first third of it. I mean, the whole introduction with old Benkberg, it was absolutely insufferable.
Anyway, okay. So I will give it 4 shady Dubai businessmen as well.
Thank you very much for joining us for the 24th Adamola Bookman podcast. Episode 25 will be the Italian legend Andrea Pirlo. I think, therefore I play.
Would you like to read us out with a poem from Benkberg?
Well, you begged me to, Johnny, so I will. Okay, so this is how we finish the book. In Degerfors, Bjorneborg and Bjorneborg. Degerfors coming up soon, but I'm not headed to Degerfors. But the train is actually on its way to Degerfors, so I'll go along with going along. Soon I too will be in Degerfors, where people will get off and get on. As I said, since I'm not headed to Degerfors, I won't bother to get off. Boarding doesn't apply to me because I'm already on the train that will soon leave Degerfors. Life in Degerfors, just like the train, will go on as usual with and without, respectively, me. I'll go on. We'll soon be in Bjorneborg, where the train doesn't stop for getting off or on. The train stops in Bjorneborg to wait for another train to pass. Bjorneborg has, or rather had, fine wrestling traditions, but Bjorneborg, I'm reading this for the first time, but Bjorneborg March has nothing to do with Bjorneborg. At any rate, not the Bjorneborg, where the train is now standing without stopping. Bjorneborg March exists in my childhood inside a wind-up clock of brass that radiated tinny, East Bosnian military music, oh God, to a countryside lacking any wrestling traditions. What the fuck? You have time to do some thinking in Bjorneborg, waiting for that train to pass. You can ponder whether the Degerfors brass band with roots of hundreds of years back ever often or never played Bjorneborg March. Just as, somewhat nostalgically, you can bring to mind 2 of Degerfors' legendary goalkeepers. Are you serious? Skjorta Bergstrom, who hung by his knees from the crossbar, and his successor, Sippa Tingloff, famous for his long throwouts. A joy to remember. Once at a restaurant in Finland in the city of Pori, which is called Bjorneborg in Swedish, something remarkable happened. One after another, more and more. Soon everyone except me began to blow their different instruments on the stage, on chairs, on tables. And if you didn't have anything to blow into, you had to grab bottles and glasses. In this marvellous cacophony, the next day I saw on a poster that Pori Jazz was underway in the city. Soon I'll be neither here nor there, but it's the same lovely spring rain that falls in Degerfors, Bjorneborg and Bjorneborg. That's the sort of thing that can be taken as a consolation. Fuck it out.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Do you think that in his dying wishes, Sven was like,
leave the fucking poetry.
Please don't put any poems.
I won't, Sven, I won't.
No.
Sven passes away. And he made me promise to put in my poem about Degerfors on the train.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, well.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Johnny.
Let your body spin like there is nothing in life.